want to do for you guys today is basically break down the differences between weightlifting style squat, powerlifting style squat, and talk about both the benefits, because it's something that me and Bass have been talking about loads over the last few weeks since we've been training together. And I think there's benefits to both. If you can sort of utilize a little bit more of the powerlifting style in weightlifting, you're going to strengthen other muscle groups that we wouldn't touch, and maybe some little bits in terms of mobility, in terms of the powerlifting squat, maybe that could carry over the other way around as well. We're going to chat about it today.
And something that I like is he's an Olympic level weightlifter, and he wasn't coached by me, but he's just an awesome guy, an awesome athlete, and he's going to show you his stuff which has no influence by what I have to say, and I'm going to show you mine. So we've got two different schools of thought here, so you guys can decide what works best for you.
Let's do it.
So this will be my first session back into knee wraps. Something that I recommend with knee wraps is you start light. I'm not going to be going heavy because it'll throw me off a lot, and I need to condition the skin on my sensitive knees. It kind of hurts when you wrap it really tight, but that's something that you build up the tolerance towards. And if you're thinking about the pain on your knees when you're trying to go in for a heavy squat, yeah, it gets in the way. So we don't want anything to get in the way. I'm squatting with comfort wraps today. Usually, actually, every single time I squat, I've already done my body weight squats as well. I did like 2 sets of 20, just kind of like this with no weight on my body. So I've already started moving. Now this is the first time I touch a barbell, empty bar. This is 25 kilograms. So the first time I touch a bar, it's kind of smooth and it's comfortable. I used to come in straight to an empty bar without any of the warm-up stuff. I just used to use that as a warm-up, and it was always quite uncomfortable. No big deal, but that felt smooth, so I'm ready to load straight away. First plate that goes on, the writing faces inwards. So if you're ever wondering, so that's how it's done in competition. Now that's my OCD.
I didn't even know that the other day when you said it.
Yeah, well, in weightlifting, they're double-sided.
Yeah.
So it doesn't really matter to you guys, you just put them straight on. But a lot of people, when they're coming here and they're putting the metal plates on, it's like, first plate numbers in, every plate after that numbers out. I believe it's so that people can see what that first plate is. So it's got the writing on the first plate, and people are able to read, in case they're colorblind and they don't know that the reds are the 25s. So everything here is comp spec. So we've got a 25 kilo squat bar. These are 2.5 kilo clips. So that's all calibrated. That's from Goliath. I love this bar. This is the same type of bar that we use in my competition. The same squat rack, the exact same squat rack. It's an AIM-FX Warlord. That's what's used in Pro Raw, which is going to be my next big competition. And same with all my athletes as well. A lot of my athletes compete in the biggest competitions in Australia, so that's Pro Raw, and Big Dogs is the big one.
So I'm just going to tell you about my squat warm-up. I will not do any specific mobilizing necessarily before I squat, purely because I've got very good range the full way through the squat. So for me, staying a little bit tighter, stretch reflex, I'm better squatting that way than I would necessarily spending too much time stretching and mobilizing in the bottom position. But yes, again, like Bass was saying, I still start with an empty bar.
When was your last squat session?
Last squat session was Tuesday, front squats.
Oh, okay.
I'd say for me, 2 back, 1 front is a magical split for weightlifting. Obviously, front squat's more relative to what we do when we're Olympic lifting, but again, for me, because I'm quite comfortable in my sitting position in front rack, I'll go 2 back, 1 front.
And do you go for any sort of like PRs because you're an Olympic weightlifter?
PRs?
Yeah, so like a 1 rep max.
Yeah, okay, my one rep max, back squat's 262, front squat's 220. That's just with knee supports and high bar. I've done in my Olympic lifts 160 snatch and 195 clean and jerk at 94 kilo body weight.
Oh, sweet.
Got the belt on loose. I start with my equipment very early, and as I get heavier and heavier, I'll go tighter and tighter. But that's just about getting used to the feel of everything. I'll probably even start wrapping my knees on the next set.
Who do you think is the better rapper, you or James?
The funny thing is, it's hard to feel myself on myself. So it's hard to actually gauge, but Dan, James is good. What I love about James is he's actually a perfectionist. He takes his job so seriously. And the precision in which he delivers in every part of his job, I got to take my hat off to that kid. So I'm gonna have to say James is a better rapper. Yeah, he's under a lot of pressure when he raps me as well. He really takes it seriously, which is so good for me. But in competition, man, 10 out of 10. Every time he wraps my knees, it's a perfect wrap. So, wow, my best competition squat is 375 kilograms in the 110 class, which is the current Australian record. I'm very proud of that one, and hugely to thank that guy, James. He wrapped my knees perfectly under pressure. And every single time I've had a powerlifting competition, I fly that guy down. I pay for his airfare and accommodation because that's how much it means to me.
Oh, wow.
And interestingly, something that I see at the highest level is guys at the back that are wrapping people randomly. It's like, I don't have a coach here today, can you please wrap me? For me, that's maybe it's a little bit precious of me, but I take it really seriously. When I want to wrap my knees perfectly, it takes a lot of energy in the hands. And if he had to wrap someone else, his hands would fatigue and maybe it wouldn't be perfect for mine. So I think that if you're out there squatting in competition and you don't have your allocated wrapper, you could be doing better. Food for thought.
So is that like a specific guy you need? Like you have a preferred person?
Oh yeah, I wouldn't just get someone just turn up on the day and say, okay, I'm going to this competition, so do you guys have anyone that can rap? Can you get someone to rap me? I wouldn't do that. I take my guy James, he comes anywhere with me. And the favor is reciprocated, so when he competes, often I've got other members of the team, and I say, sorry guys, like James is there for me, so I'm there for him. So these guys have to get their own rappers as well. But it's not a common thing. Like I said, maybe I'm really precious with it, but it's really important to me. But
you have to have things like that you do get precious about. Like for me, I always have whenever I was at international competition, I'd have my personal coach that I train with in Bristol, but my competition coach was someone different. And like they both had a good relationship with each other. So it's like, right, when I finish training, get me ready for competition, and then Dave would coach me on the platform because my main coach wouldn't necessarily travel to compete with me. And like things like that, like you have certain people that you feel comfortable around when you're competing, like, you know what I mean? Like one of my friends at the Commonwealth Games, when we were both competing, he was like, I was his regular training partner in Bristol, and he was like, I want you to coach me at the Commonwealth Games. I was like, I know kind of what I'm doing, but I was competing as well. I competed the day after him, but I coached him the day before on the platform just because for him, he felt more comfortable if I'm there. And sometimes that's more important necessarily than having someone that's super knowledgeable. If there's someone there that you're comfortable with, then that's better.
Anyway. That's a good point. I got a lot of guys that come internationally for me, and if they
feel comfortable around.
But at the same time, if they have a preferred rapper, I step back. Even though they might think that I'm better for the job, if they're not used to me, even though I think highly of my rapping skills, if they're not used to mine, it can throw them off big time. Okay, I've just put on knee wraps. These are really soft knee wraps. These are really comfortable. But at the same time, this makes this weight feel like I'm just bouncing up and down.
How long are those knee wraps? Are they 3
They're
meters?
2.5 meters. So that's
2.5.
what's legal in my competition. In most powerlifting competitions, that's all that's legal. What a comfortable feeling. It's like not very heavy, that's only 130 kilograms, but literally the effort is in holding the bar on my body and guiding it down to the sweet spot. If I can do that and hold my body in perfect position, it just bounces up. And these wraps aren't even tight, but as I get heavier and heavier, I'll go tighter and tighter.
So how low would you go? Is it till your hamstrings touch your calves? Is that?
Definitely not in this type of squat. Yeah. My hamstrings, if we have a look at the difference between the powerlifter style of squat, which is what I'm doing, compared to the weightlifter squat, which is what Sonny's
He just loves it. He loves it.
He's killing himself with the smelling salts. He likes it. But he'll be squatting full depth. It's a very knee dominant type of squat. So his knee bends a lot and his torso is really upright. So his hips don't bend as much as mine, but his knees bend a lot more. His hamstrings press his calves, press against his calves, and then he comes back up. With mine, a lot more hip bend. So it's more of a hip dominant movement and not as much knee bend. So my hamstring won't press up against my calves in that bottom position. What I'm trying to achieve in powerlifting competition is where the crease of the hip sits below the top of the knee. That's the full depth squat in my competition, and that's what I'm trying to achieve. With Sonny, I'm not going to tell him what he's doing, maybe he can. How deep do you want to go in your squats?
Bollocks in socks. That's what my coach used to say, bollocks in socks. Now, for me, you want to go as low as you can hold, like good form, like the same as what you're saying. Like I can sit with my bum cheeks pretty much on the floor in my squat, but I'll lose tension. So for me, stopping just below my lowest position so that my back stays nice and flat, no butt wink, is probably the best position for me to explode out the bottom. So like I'd say, even on my heaviest squats, I will catch a little bounce when I'm squatting. So I'm like no lower than sort of here. Although, yeah, if I put my feet wider and my butt winks, I could get a little bit deeper, but I've got no tension here. It's gonna make it extremely difficult to stand up out the bottom. So for me, I'm stopping a little bit higher, keeping my back flat here. All the tension in my quads really, not so much in the glutes and in the hips, more in the quads, because that carries over into my weightlifting better to drive out from this position here. But like 2 weeks ago, no, maybe 4 weeks ago, Bass taught me his way of squatting, and it's a lot more hips, it's a lot more glutes than I would normally use. So what I've been doing at the moment is squatting my way, because that's what's going to carry over into my weightlifting, but then backing down to say 160, 170 and doing 3 drop down sets the way that Bass taught me. So using my hips more, using my glutes more, because for me, whenever it comes to strength training or, you know, training specifically for a sport, it doesn't mean that you should neglect other ways of training, because you're going to get a more balanced really in terms of all the muscles that you're working. So that's going to support the ones you get really strong at, because I think a lot of people end up getting injured sometimes in their training because, for example, you get super strong in your quads, really develop the quad muscle, and then neglect the hamstring. And muscles are working in pairs and working together, so you need to keep good balance between the two muscle groups, regardless of whether the antagonistic and the antagonistic, regardless of whether you're specifically going to be using them or not.
100 kilos. Too lightweight.
That's my signature. Circus.
180 kilograms. It's what I was working on the other day with no wraps. It was kind of moved the same speed, but I can tell you right now, that was very easy because of the wraps. The wraps are very soft, but that would probably give me an extra 20 kilograms for sure. When I start tightening my wraps, and I'm gonna use it on my next set. These are my warm-up wraps, really soft and comfortable. They don't hurt at all. But then when we got my competition style squat, style of wrap, the Lily Bridge wraps, made by Pioneer. So these are the guys that taught me how to squat. So Eric Lillibridge can squat 480 kilograms. He's currently the number 140 kilogram powerlifter in the world. Yeah, they taught me everything about the squat, and I'm very grateful for that because it came from a very good place.
That was 170.
170.
And chucking on
10, 190.
So 190 next.
No knee support today. Feels like squatting raw. Just like having sex like a condom. It's not safe.
Best.
4 plates now, so that's 25 kilo plates, 4 plates, 25 kilo bar, 2.5 kilo plates. Grand total of 230 kilograms, still warming up. So if you look at the difference with the plates compared to what Sonny's using, they're very thin. That's a benefit for me when I want to load so many plates on. When you have bumper plates, this same amount of weight will probably be out to here, which tends to bend the bar a little bit. Even though this is a very stiff bar, this is a much thicker bar than what Sonny's using. So it doesn't flap as much, but it's just steel. And when you put that much weight on the bar, it bends slightly. So these powerlifting bars are designed for that, to keep it as close as possible to the center, so it doesn't bend as much. When it bends, that's called whip. So it doesn't whip around on my back that much. I don't want a moving object on my body when I'm trying to lift as heavy as possible. So that's why we have the thin plates. Also, powerlifters squat a lot more than weightlifters. Weightlifters are very, they don't use wraps. So they're not squatting as much, and they do a clean and jerk and a snatch. The world record clean and jerk is probably around 265 at the moment. 265 kilograms, which is 4 reds, a blue, and a clip. So imagine that, but it comes out all the way to the end. They don't really go heavier than that. Whereas in powerlifting, the biggest squat in the world, 525 kilograms with knee wraps. So 525 kilograms wouldn't fit on the bar if you use bumper plates. So when you're squatting that heavy, they don't fit on the bar unless you've got these thin plates. That's reason number 2 for having these plates.
That's the only thing I've...
Yeah, but it's a nice piece of string because it's got the Gucci snake on it. But when I do compare what he's got, it's a Velcro belt. You know, I don't want to be too hard on him because actually it does offer some support. There's no doubt about that.
Look at the difference in how we wear these as well.
Compared to, so look at the thickness of mine. This is 13 mil leather. This does not stretch.
10 millimeter Velcro.
So here's
10 centimeter Velcro, sorry.
Sorry, 10 centimeters this way. So is mine, 10 centimeters, but the thickness here,
okay.
That's 13 mil. Yours is probably about 5 mil, 5 mil thick. And when you get to the bottom, there's no doubt that it'd be stretching.
Yeah.
You're wearing that for your comfort, which is around just below his belly button. For me, there's my belly button here. So I have it very high, which is not common for a lot of powerlifters either. A lot of people prefer further down. This is something that I teach, is a higher belt position. It's also a lot looser. So when I wear it down there, it's quite loose. But up here, I've got a bigger circumference. This is closer to my diaphragm. And I like to use these muscles here to push out against the belt. I feel it gives me a better brace. But if I teach Sonny to do that, it feels odd for him. So that's his brace. And his gut pokes out the top. My gut pokes out the bottom.
Yeah, I'm like, there, bracing.
Yeah, exactly.
There.
Exactly. That's why I put my belt there. So he's bracing up there, which is why I'm bracing at the same point. And I'm pushing those muscles against the belt. But my rule is, if you lift a better weight with the belts in your most comfortable position, do that.
That's the thing, like with any of these technical teachings, things like knee wraps, things like that, it is personal preference to a degree. There's not one right way suits everyone. You have got to play around and try different things, and you know, try it for a little bit. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work, but give it enough time to actually go, rather than just trying something and it feels strange, so you go, nah, that's not for me. Try it for a bit and actually give it the time of day to see whether it helps. Whoa!
190 kilograms. Sonny Webster.
So you always go reps of 3?
Today I'd say most commonly would be 3s and 5s, rep ranges that I'd work, but you have got to play around with it. You know, you get used to working certain rep ranges. I'd say because this is relatively light in comparison to my best, you do have to, you know, spend some time doing at least 3 reps, higher rep ranges on these weights. You know, the other day on your seminar, you were talking about people using the bounce and catching the bounce. It can be useful kind of to a degree, but then when I bounce, if I bounce and hit the wall, squat's over. Yep. Whereas when you're keeping the tension the whole way through the squat, not that I'm not keeping tension when I'm bouncing, but when you're slightly more in control about the tempo of the bar, it's much easier to push through a sticking point than it is when you're catching the bounce.
Exactly. So the speed difference between mine and Sonny's squats, you're going to see him speed up in and out of the hole, which is very useful for a weightlifter. The way that I do it, I will absolutely try and speed up, but not to that degree. I won't go as fast as you.
Kennedy squat, like the guy wears no fucking knee supports. He ties like a bit of tissue paper around his patella tendon, and he just goes bang in and out of like 360.
And he's vegan, right?
And he's vegan. Yeah.
And he's vegan. Must be the vegan.
It can be done.
Yeah, it can be done. In and out super fast, like aggressive squatter. Like when we was training with him in Miami, I mean, he didn't squat super heavy then. He was up around like 220, but he is actively like chucking himself in and out of that bottom position. He's like, when he's warming up, he's really like doing this.
Yeah.
In and out the bottom position, like when he's doing his warm sets, which fucking just hurts thinking about it.
But I've even spoken to other squatters that squat similar to him, and they watch me squat, and they have sent me messages. You know, they watch me squat internationally through the gram, through Instagram, and they send me private messages. Kevin's here, can someone open the door for him? And they say, damn, if you only learn how to throw yourself into it the way I do, you would bounce up an extra 20 kilograms, I guarantee you. For me, it's just like, it's possible, but now I have to retrain a completely different movement. I'm strong my way, and I believe the opposite is true. I believe I can get bigger numbers when I move slowly. If I believed that I could get more with the faster squat, trust me, I'd be squatting fast.
The thing is, it's even more relevant in weightlifting. People see weightlifting done really well and think more speed is good. But speed's only good if you're in control of the bar, and that's why I always say to people, you need to learn how to be in control of the bar first before you start gaining speed, okay? It's like when you first learn to write. I bet your daughter doesn't write her name like that, does she? No chance. You learn to write, it's slow. Once you become more confident, you can write your name without thinking about it or write it very fast. Same with weightlifting. Once you're that drilled in the movement pattern, it naturally speeds up. And I think that's like what you're saying, Bass, if like, you know, to a degree, your squat's controlled, more and more you do it naturally, like you said, you're attempting to move faster, it will start to move faster, then you have more weight.
Big time. And as I get closer into further into my competition prep, and I'm more comfortable with the heavier loads, I actually do move it faster as well, but still not as fast as what a lot of high bar squatters will do. Hey.
So how many rotations are you going at? Revolutions are you going?
This is going to be 8 revolutions.
8 revolutions. And this is your last working set?
My first working set,
First working set.
which will also be my last.
Fine, but
Let's go, Baz. Look, easy. Nice. Pump it up.
yes, come on. Squeeze through there. There, look, 200.
It was kind of comfortable. Kind of the first time I've done it with the wraps in a long time, so kind of uncomfortable as well.
Yeah, it's only just like slightly forward on a couple of the reps.
Yeah, I felt that.
Yeah, other than that.
I've got to get my balance back with it. It's different. Definitely different technique to squatting raw. And that's the first time I've had knee wraps on since April. Yeah, so I've been squatting raw without it for 6 months now. Yeah, so that's tender on the skin, let me tell you. Let's go. Strong boy.
Let's go, Sonny.
Nice.
Nice. Easy.
You got this, brother. You got this, brother. Let's go. Hit it. Beautiful, man. Beautiful spot. Nice.
Yeah.
Well done, brother.
See you later.
Beautiful.
Nice.
Not bad.
Not bad.
Okay, guys, I hope you enjoyed our squat session. We only did 1 or 2 top sets each. I did 1, Sonny did a couple, but I guess that highlights the difference between 2 different styles of lifters. I'm a powerlifter, Sonny's a weightlifter, but we're both squatting decent numbers, and a lot of the techniques do cross over, but it's very different styles of techniques. And my recommendation for you is, if you have the mobility to perform both types, my recommendation is to perform both types. Hope you enjoyed that session, guys.